BFM 101.3. Barry's just left us, but we're joined in the studio now by Ciara Brennan, the one and only candidate for Deputy President, except Ron, who we've already spoken to. Ciara, opinions. Ron, man or woman?
I'm going to say woman, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I don't know, might be woman on woman action, maybe. Well, given the quote from me in the paper today, which said that I was running for Deputy President because I wanted to get my hands dirty, which I actually probably should have read. Ciara, would like to be Deputy President because she's not afraid to get her hands dirty and to be hardworking, but selective editing anyway. But yeah, we'll say woman.
So you don't want to get your hands dirty?
I see what you're doing here. Yes, I have no problem getting my hands dirty. Gloves are off. Gloves are off.
So Ron's going down, yeah?
Oh, fingers crossed. Anyway, yeah. But then again, I'd probably be the last to know about a Ron campaign, so we'll say nothing yet.
But Ron is not a man to be taken lightly. Barry was just telling us that he did win the first year Ron was introduced to the ballot sheet. So you're going to be running a tough campaign anyway?
I mean, I was proceeding, and I intend to, as the campaign goes on, to act as, as per all the candidates will be. I'm going to treat it absolutely seriously because I don't want people to think, I want my campaign to reflect how I will be, basically, should everything go on as expected and should I get elected, I want my campaign to reflect how I will be in office. And so I'm going with the full manifesto, full amount of posters and full campaign team. Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit about your manifestos. What are you promising students this year?
Well, my manifesto is basically all around the idea of accessibility, transparency and visibility, because that's the reason why I decided to run for Deputy President, because I found myself getting critical of the union, and my attitude towards things would be, if you want to be critical of something and you have the power to change it, or you have the power to be, to, I suppose, decide who will be the force that will change something, get in there and do it. And my biggest problem with the union was that there was publications coming out in relation to my own side of things with Deputy President. There is and was publications coming out of the union, and there was efforts at some level to communicate with the students. But I felt that, and I still do, that there's some kind of blockage there that's failing to get to the regular student on the concourse. So that's something I definitely want to tackle when I'm in there. So,
how do you plan to tackle that?
Well, first things first, in relation to the publication side of things, I want to really centralise everything that comes out of the corridor and the student centre. I think that if you look at the internal management of the union, that needs to be greatly improved. I think that if we sat down with the sabbatical officers, like the situation we had last week, was it last week? Yeah, it was, where we had 3 weeks running, or 3 campaign weeks, so to speak. Differently abled week. It wasn't cultural awareness. What was the other week?
Differently abled week. International students.
International students and refreshers. Well, I know turned into day, but refreshers week, all running together, and I think that's awful. And I think that we need to be careful about how we publicise our events. But again, that comes back to the internal management side of things. And then when it comes to campaigns, for example, I would be very conscious of the students who hold executive positions, who have to run campaign weeks. And really, at the moment, I feel they have to do so on their own. And while they're full-time students, it's obviously really difficult for them to commit to organising such events. So I really think that the Deputy President should be the person who steps on in there and is the person who helps them in their role, obviously. So that's just an example of 2 things. But I do want to make, the sabbatical positions relevant to the students. I will really, really try and encourage lecture addressing if at all possible, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just not good enough that people come looking for your vote every February. There should be more accountability within the role, because, people involved know what council is, and, people who are on council have their own difficulties with council. But council is not the union. The union is the students. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care if the students on the concourse don't know who the sabbatical officers are, as long as they know who their class reps are. And I want to localise everything. And I'd love to have maybe publications on a local level for the larger schools, for certain classes or whatever, to really highlight the difficulties or the issues that are in that area. Now that will mean working very closely with the class reps. So that's another thing that will have to come with the role.
Okay. So would you be in favour of more class reps then? I mean, we still have an awful lot of situations where certain constituencies aren't represented, and that's a perennial problem. And obviously for something like the kind of thing you're trying to introduce, you would need every constituency represented. How are you going to tackle that?
Well, absolutely. I think if we show how the class rep system is managed how it can be managed correctly and successfully, it will encourage class reps to emerge in certain areas where currently representation is low, or maybe you've had a situation whereby only one person has run for class rep. And I would really encourage class rep elections to be pushed more. And I think not only to get people out there to run for class rep, but actually to get people, there should be a follow-on campaign. I think Dave this year and last year ran very successfully, encouraging campaigns with the campaign to encourage people to run for class rep. And that did work very well, but that's not enough. I think more needs to be done to get people out there to vote in class rep elections. And I think if people see democracy working in their own school or within their own course, it will kind of encourage more people to run in classes where there may be perhaps no class rep at the moment. But I also think that the role of the programme officers is something I'd like to explore further. And I know that constitutionally there is, obviously restrictions as per like what is their role, what can they do, what are they supposed to do. But that's something I'd like to deal, and tackle in my term should everything go as expected in the next 2 weeks. Because there's great potential if everything is run well on a local level. There's great potential to have accountability then at the top. So that's something I think if there's an active programme officer in the area, then that will obviously make class reps more informed and more accountable for their activities and what they're doing for their class, as class reps.
Very good. Well, you sound like you have an awful lot of very good ideas there. What kind of background and experience do you have that you can bring to the job?
Well, I could break up my, life in UCD in two. For my first year in UCD, I was one of the typical kind of 9 to 5, regular student, on the academic side of things, I'm studying law, did my coursework, happy out, but I felt like I wasn't really engaging with college life. And then in second year, I got involved in the Law Society. So I suppose that's how many people would get involved in UCD life, societies being so prevalent here. And I got involved in the Law Society, and from that stemmed, an interest in the union. Now, this is actually my first year as class rep, but I always would have been very much, involved in, UCD life through the societies. And I was always interested in what was going on. And I think that some people might see that as maybe me being a little bit, inexperienced. But at the same time, one of my greatest criticisms of the union this year is a sense of staleness. And I think that if we could get more people involved who actually haven't been around for 10,000 years around the student centre, then that can ultimately be a positive thing. So that's something I want to bring in, kind of my experience as being someone who hasn't been involved. And ultimately, I would have had little or no, knowledge of the union when I was in first year. But it was only because I was dragged in, kicking and screaming, some might say, by other people I knew in second year. That was how I got involved. So, that's my perspective on it, and something I will take with me, into office.